Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable. We are the show that blends the love of music with the love of whiskey. And with me tonight, as always, my good friend Drew Crawley. Drew, happy
Howdy,
Sunday
my
to
friend.
you.
Happy Sunday to you. It is a great day indeed.
Yeah, see, so a little inside baseball, how the sausage is made. Our audience, enjoys these shows on Wednesdays or Thursdays if you're a little late, maybe Friday if you've been busy, or Saturday after you get up, sleeping in a little bit. But we record these on Sundays, so happy Sunday.
Yes.
And so, Drew, you are right now in Music City, USA.
Yes. Yeah. I am in Nashville, Tennessee. We are still, as if you listen to last week's episode, it's the same night. More inside baseball. We're in Nashville getting ready to make our second record. So this will be a full length one. And we're just all kind of in prep mode. We've been watching football and eating barbecue and drinking some bourbon today before we hit the studio running tomorrow morning.
That's a darn good day, and
Great day.
the guests that we have here, we'll introduce them in just a few minutes. But these are some really talented young men that are working with you on your new project. But before we
Indeed.
get into the new project, let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's already out there. Tell people what this stuff is.
Yep. So you can stream the first EP, Tower Songs, wherever you listen to music. It's a smaller collection of songs, just written from a really, I'll say, intense time of life. But that came out last January. And then we've got Stuck out right now, also available wherever you stream music. It's the first single from this new project. We'll have an acoustic EP later on in the year, and then hopefully early next year we will have this next record for you guys.
It's very exciting, very exciting. All right, so uh, the guys that are with us tonight are going to be in the studio with you, Drew, tomorrow to start recording this second album.
Yep, absolutely. So I'll let them introduce themselves. We can do it that way. They'll probably do a better job of it than me.
All right, well, kind of lead it off and take it around the horn and uh, get cue them up to who needs to introduce themselves
All right.
first.
So I've got on my screen, I've got Lorenzo up first. So Lorenzo is our producer, engineer, bass player, mad genius scientist in the studio, all of the above.
I think that's very generous. Saying mad genius, but yeah, I'm Lorenzo. Hi everybody. I do produce and engineer Drew's music.
Yep.
I
Graciously hosts us,
yeah,
this weekend. And
I host a free Airbnb apparently. I don't charge cleaning fees, but yeah, I help out with Drew booking studio time and excited to get to it. It's been a while since we've been to Nome because we're going to Nome.
Yep.
Switching it up a little bit,
Yep.
but nevertheless, it's exciting.
Yeah. All right, and then next up, I've got Mr. Evan Sams.
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of internet on and off over here.
We can hear you fine.
You got me? Okay, great. I mean, I'm Evan. I play guitar. I like playing guitar a lot. I like playing guitar a lot.
And he's gone.
He
All right, we're
likes
gonna
playing
skip.
guitar a lot though, so that's good. That's
We
good
can
because
skip
you
ahead.
brought him down
I
there
can
to
still
play
hear him
guitar.
because he's right across the wall from me. So,
but he loves playing guitar, and by chance you're going to have him playing guitar for you tomorrow, so that's a really good coincidence.
Crazy how that works. Yeah. Well,
Here,
while we
I'm-
wait for him to come back on, Evan has been a dear friend to me for 10 years now. He was the second person I met when I moved to Louisville from Oklahoma, and we have been making music together in some form or another basically for the last decade. So I'm a big fan of Mr. Sams.
That's about it.
He's a darn good guitarist too, and he played with you on the last album.
Mhm.
Yep. So
So
Evan was here. You hear that kick-ass guitar solo on Angel? That's all him.
Right. If you listen to Tower Songs and you're hearing, wow, that's a great guitar solo, this is the guy.
Yeah.
So,
And that was like, I'm just gonna shameless plug because that was a wild experience, because you all had been in the studio for a week. You had spent like 5 days already at that point on 6 songs, and I could only get in there on Friday. And I think we cut 18 or 20 parts across 6 different songs. And so anything that's on that record that I played that somebody didn't like, it's like, okay, yeah, I had 7 hours to do it. But anything they're like, man, that's killer, it's like, yeah, I did that in 7 hours.
Right.
So just shameless plug.
There
It's
you
like some
go.
of these legendary 0-take guitar solos that end up from some session musicians back in the day. But Evan, thanks for being with us.
Awesome. So we decided one guitar player wasn't enough, and we had to bring in another ringer, our good friend, who's been on the show before, Mr. Kevin Niehoff.
Yeah, glad to be back. I was itching to get back on at some point. But yeah, my name's Kevin. I met Drew a year plus ago. I don't know, just through mutual friends, and we've played together at some shows in Louisville. And I don't know, I'm excited to hit the studio tomorrow. And yeah,
got a library of guitars sitting behind you right now.
Yeah. So I'll give you a little rundown of the room. Oh, which way?
Other way. There you go.
There's a lot of guitars right there. There's a lot of guitars right there.
You're back over there.
Or wait, yeah, somewhere. There's another one. And then here's Evan.
Yeah, we don't have enough guitars in this house. I think the combined net worth and music gear is worth more than all of us combined. So we've got a lot of stuff to play with tomorrow.
It's like not having enough whiskey in my house. So,
it's a good problem to have.
Too much is never enough. But no, I remember the first time I met Kevin was he played. He was the opener for your album launch party.
That's right.
I don't know what hacks you had lined up previously that stiffed you and didn't show, but good grief, man. This dude was incredible. I fell in love with him from the moment I first heard him play, and he's one of my favorite guitar players in the entire city, if not the world. And I'm excited that he's playing with you on this album too. I can't imagine how all this guitar stuff's going to shake out. Lorenzo, you've got a job on your hands because you've got a couple of really fantastic guitarists here, and just how you pull all that together is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I've told Drew my plan is I'm just going to put 2 chairs in the room and sit them down and just let them do their thing. And we'll come back. We'll come back when we need to. I'm just going to hit record and let it happen.
Record and go.
Yeah. I don't think there's going to be much that we have to do for the most part, which I mean, from my end is nice. Thank you guys. Thanks for making my life a little bit easier.
It's going to be a real good time.
Thanks for the kind words, Kev. But I'd want to say about that night, that was the coldest I've ever been in my life. I was gonna say like the first time I really met Drew for real was and Lorenzo and Evan, both all of you guys. I mean that was a terrible experience, but it was fun.
I don't know what dumbass booked an outdoor concert in January.
All I know is I kept hearing, well, it's kind of inside. It's kind of inside. It's mostly inside. And then I get a text message from our friend Mark Krebs, who was playing drums for you that night. And he said, I don't know what Drew's talking about. This is not inside. It's covered. It has a roof over it, but it's not inside.
Yeah, that was poor planning on my part. We'll do better for this one.
But it worked out. Nobody will ever forget it. So
that's for sure.
That's for sure. All right,
from enjoyment or trauma, either one.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into some whiskey here in just a second, but first I want to tell you about the Bar Cart Co-op. Bar Cart Co-op is a collection of friends who have different shows regarding all things whiskey, all things bourbon. We go from the Distiller's Talk, which is a very technical show with Alan Bishop and Christy Atkinson. They will interview distillers from across the nation and around the world, talking with them about how they make whiskey. And it's a pretty fascinating show. You can really geek out on that show. We got some guitar geeks with us tonight, so they can understand how that works. Another show that Alan does is called "If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything," and he talks about the spirits side of the spirits industry, and he does that show with his wife Kim. Our friends Mike and Patrick do My Whiskey Den. It is a show that focuses on craft whiskey every Monday night, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Check them out on YouTube. And then our show, Bourbon Turntable. You know us, you love us. Just keep hitting that subscribe button, that like, that share. We really appreciate it. And Bar Cart's working on some new shows as well. So be on the lookout for that in the future. And we have one more announcement for you.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that bell notification to find out when new episodes are coming out, which do come out every single Wednesday on all of the services: Spotify, Apple Music, Google, maybe Amazon, definitely YouTube. And always hit that like button, but hit it an odd number of times, so then that way it stays as a like.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Wonder Mike, always with us. All right, so we're going to talk about a little bit of whiskey here, some new whiskey, because we like to do a show from time to time called New Music, New Whiskey, where we share with you some of the things that we're trying that are new to us. Hopefully they're new to you. Hopefully there's some things that we like that we want to share with you. And then we'll talk about some new music that we're listening to, because hear from a lot of people that say, I don't know how to find new music anymore, because you can't really go to the radio, because who listens to the radio anymore? So how do we find new music? And that's part of what we want to bring to people, is some of the new music that we enjoy, and hopefully you will enjoy it as well. So let's start with some new whiskey. Drew, we'll let you kick it off for us. What do you have?
Absolutely. So this is actually from our friend Lorenzo. This is the Nika coffee grain whiskey. I've had some other things from Nika. They're straight from the barrel. I love very much. But this is it's Japanese single malt, about 90 proof. Super delicious. I'm getting a ton of like a nuttiness, kind of like an almond pecan thing, and then just a lot of this honey, which I really enjoy. It's distilled on a coffee still, though, for those of you that are familiar with that. It's a little bit different distillation product, but yeah, really enjoying this. And then coming off of our previous recordings where we were drinking all 100 plus proofs, I'm really enjoying a 90 for a few minutes. Very good. I would say pick up a bottle. Japanese single malt's not something I'm real familiar with, but it's always a pleasure when I get to try one.
That's interesting. Very interesting. All right. Who else has something? Lorenzo, you have anything?
I don't have the bottle with me. Also, my disclaimer here is I'm not going to be as versed in this as you guys are, so bear with me here. But I have Blackened, which I learned from Drew today is Metallica's whiskey.
Yes,
it is.
My bottle said it was batch 102. I don't know if that's relevant.
Okay.
There is a reason I did specifically go for that one. I've been drinking a lot of whiskey sours lately, and based off of, I've had this one before a while ago, and from what I remember, there was a spice aspect to it, and I felt like that and a whiskey sour would have been really nice. So that's what I have. I've made myself a whiskey sour.
Nice.
Blackened. And my theory with the spice at the end is kind of there, not as relevant as I thought it was going to be, but either way, it's enjoyable, and I will have one of these again.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Kevin?
Yeah, I have it's a newer whiskey, I think. I'm just kidding, it's Bud Light. I'm not. I haven't changed my stance since last time. I'm not really a whiskey guy. Drew's been trying, but I didn't come prepared. So sorry.
Okay. Well, you just got into town and have to do work, so we'll forgive it this time. But next time you're on, you better have something not in a Bud Light can.
Okay.
You just
awesome.
You just hit up the bar card. It's right there to your left.
Oh shit.
Yeah. For those not watching and listening along, you can tell we are having a great time kicking off this week.
Oh yeah, I wish I were there, but anyway, because I would have a lot to offer.
Yes.
Okay, I am drinking Wallersham brandy. Okay, I was in Wisconsin a few weeks ago and toured several distilleries up there. One of which was the Wallersham Distillery, and that it was a vineyard before, winery, and it's a beautiful, beautiful campus, and uh, it the winery dates back into like the 1800s, and then at one point it shut down, and then the Wallersheim family came in, bought the property, rejuvenated the winery back in the 70s, and then maybe 7 or 8 years ago they started a distillery, and so they're making brandy out of the grapes that they use in their wine, and this is a bottled and bond brandy that was aged in uh, charred new American oak. So it's aged like a bourbon, but it's a brandy. So it's very much a whiskey drinker's brandy. And
Yeah,
one
that
of
sounds
the other
delicious.
things, one of the other things I discovered in Wisconsin is if you have an old fashioned, you make the old fashioned not with bourbon or rye, but you make it with brandy. And
Mm.
that was very tasty. So, and I found one of the places I went, they made it with a uh, chipotle chocolate bitters. So I've got a whole new cocktail array at my disposal. So we'll be having some uh, brandy old fashions with chipotle and chocolate bitters smoke that I'll smoke very soon. But for tonight, I'm just drinking this brandy, and it's fantastic. If you're not a brandy person but you like whiskey, I got a feeling you'd like this brandy. So
Where in Wisconsin is that?
it is in this particular place is in Prairie du Sac.
Okay.
Uh,
Look that up.
all of it in southern Wisconsin, kind of near Madison.
Got it.
Every place we went was very rural, small town. Uh, Lots of the places we went to a distillery called J. Henry, where they grow all of their grains, with the exception of the barley. They grow their own corn, they grow their own rye, their own wheat. Uh, so, very interesting uh, whiskey distillation uh, scene going on in Wisconsin. Lots of really cool stuff. So
That's awesome.
I'll make a stop the next time I go up to the Northwoods with the family.
there you go. Yeah, I'll give you a list of places to hit because they're all pretty close together. At least the ones we went to, they were probably within. Some of them were 5 miles from each other, but some of them, maybe 15 or 20. But it was all pretty close.
Well, send them my way. I'm pretty sure we will go
Yeah.
to all of them.
Yep. You'll have a great time. But anyway, cheers, gentlemen. Let's have a drink.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
I'm gonna take like 3 drinks. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Catch up.
What? How's the nose on that Bud Light?
Kevin, the real question should be, how's the nose on my Liquid Death sparkling water? Really breaking the mold over here.
Behaving yourself.
I don't think I know that particular brand of sparkling water. So, what sets that off is
It was cold and it was in the refrigerator and it's very heavy metal and it's sparkling water.
And it's
Apparently it's
good.
recyclable container. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not picky.
okay. All right.
Got great marketing. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it. That's part of the
Yeah.
game.
I honestly thought that was like an off-brand Four Loko. I'm not gonna lie. I've never seen that before.
Oh man. All right. Well, we're going to talk about some music here in just a second, but first we want to tell you a little bit as we're wrapping up side A of the show. A very interesting, unusual, fun side A. Our buddy Alan Bishop, he's got a book out called One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. Alan's been distilling for, gosh, probably 25 years or so, and has learned a lot. It takes a very authentic approach to it, both in terms of the processes that he uses and the grains that he uses, and the types of things that he distills. But he's written a book. It's available on Amazon. You can find him at One Piece at a Time Distilling on Facebook, or you can just look up Alan Bishop on Facebook or Instagram, Alchemist Cabinet. So check this stuff out. You can actually get an autograph version of the book if you order it that way as well. Alan's a good friend to us and to our show, and he's part of our Bar Cart group. But more than all that, he knows what he's doing. He's willing to share with people the things that he knows, but he also knows that he's got a lot of things that he can continue to learn as well. So check out Alan's book, One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. And again, that is available on Amazon. So, all right. So the other thing we do on these shows, these new whiskey, new music shows, is on side B, we talk about new music. So we want to try to bring to everybody some things that we're all listening to that are fairly new, or maybe they're just new to us. But we want to make you aware of it. You know, if somebody says, "Hey, I'm listening to the Beatles Revolver album," great. We can talk about that a little bit, but that don't know how new or groundbreaking that might be for anybody in the audience. So, Drew, let's start with you, buddy. What are you listening to?
So mine's the 2022 album, Degrees of Separation by Kevin Niehoff. Go check it out. It's fantastic. Plugging him. No, it is a great record. You should all seriously listen to it. But my actual selection for new music is an artist I came across last weekend, actually, for the first time at Bourbon and Beyond, S.G. Goodman. So she's from Harkin, Kentucky. Very much in kind of the country blues, Americana, rock scene. I know that's a big territory to cover, but she is just a great songwriter. I've been super impressed by everything I've heard from her. Her newest record is called Teeth Marks. You can stream that just about anywhere you find music, but great divorce record. Deals with a lot of pretty heavy themes, but a lot of it has to do with just what it's like to grow up in rural Kentucky and some of the obstacles that come with that. Hell of a songwriter, hell of a guitar player, and she really just rocked it at Bourbon and Beyond. So I had to go check it out. And she's also a huge proponent of straight to tape recording and vinyl. So two things that we're big fans of on this podcast. So check her out. She's awesome.
S.G. Goodman. And we'll put together a playlist for this show, like we do for most shows, that will have some selections from all the artists that we talk about, as well as Drew's music, Kevin's music, Evan's music, Lorenzo's music. I don't have any music, but if I did, it would be on there too. So I get to put the playlist together. That's my contribution. So
much appreciated.
Lorenzo, what do you have, buddy?
I've only really been having one thing on repeat all year, which it's a 2022 album. It's Bronco by Orville Peck. That, from a country music perspective, I don't dive into it as much as others, but that, from a country music album, it's fresh for me. From a songwriting perspective, it's great. There's a lot of subjects, and heartbreak and missing home, or being from he's from Johannesburg, South Africa, so he's got a few songs about just what it's like, a lot of references to where he grew up. But sonically, I love it. From an engineering perspective, there's not much on that album that bugs me, which is nice. There's a particular song on that album. It's called Out of Time, which is, I know on Spotify with Wrapped at the end of the year, they tell you your most listened to song, and I will be shocked if that's not it.
It's a great song.
I don't know what it is about that one, but that one I get drawn to that. Yeah, I think the big thing for me on that album is each song is different. It's cohesive, but it's different enough that as you go through the album, it makes you want to keep listening. Because last song on the album makes me think of like Mazzy Star, makes me think of Fade Into You. It's like exactly what I think of. But Curse of the Blackened Eye, for instance, which is I think the third or second song on the album, makes me think of Brooks and Dunn. So it kind of goes all over the place, but in like a really cohesive way.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome record.
You mentioned there's not a lot on there that bothers you from an engineering perspective. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So what are things from a record producer's standpoint? What are some things that you look for when you're listening to the album? Not necessarily, I like this song, I don't like this song, that's a cool lyric, that's a crappy lyric. As a producer, what are things that strike you?
This is probably it's going to sound like a cop-out answer. If I don't have to think about it, that strikes me.
Okay.
I find that it's really tough for me to turn off listening critically, which makes it really hard for me to sit down and enjoy music, which is not fun. But it could be anything from like, oh, maybe I think that guitar is a little too loud, or that snare drum is a little there. I don't know how I feel about that sound, or think there's too much low end in the song. But if I can turn on an album or a song and not think about any of those things, and even to a point if I like drift off and daydream and not even pay attention to the song, then I know that something was probably done from my perspective or what I like to listen to that they did right. There's not many things from like a pet peeve standpoint in the song that stand out to me. I think it's just song to song.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to say this is anywhere comparable to what you do at all, but I do sound at our church. But what I find is when I'm out listening to live music somewhere and I hear things in the mix that just seem okay, this is like we went to see the Kentucky Headhunters last night over in southern Indiana. The snare drum was just too loud. It was completely out of balance with not just the rest of the drums, but with the rest of the instrumentation on the stage. And it bugged me the whole night because that should be easy to fix. But it never got fixed. So it bothered me. The rest of the show was great, but when you start listening to things differently, you start listening to things differently once you take a different approach to it. And I'm sure that Kevin and Evan, from a guitar standpoint, especially, are going to have things that are going to stand out to them that I might not notice or others might not notice. But we'll find out what their thoughts are on some new music here and see if that's the case. Evan, you have anything?
I have two, just in prep for studio time next week. I've been doing a lot of genre specific listening. And so have done a deep dive on Tyler Childers. And I am most excited for his record coming out at the end of the week, Can I Take My Hounds to Heaven, which is 8 songs interpreted 3 different times. So he's got 3 versions of each song on the record. And I'm really curious from an artistic standpoint how he's going to accomplish that. I mean, he's not undertaking something small. That he's released 1 single, 2 versions of it, both similar but with some instrumentation changes. One version of the record is with his conventional backing band, another version of the record with strings, and then the third version he's waiting till release day to show us. So I'm curious what he's going for with this, but it's working so far on Angel Band. And then my second, and that's the thing I'm excited for. I'm not really listening to it yet.
Yeah.
But a couple weeks ago, I got to see my favorite band live over in Lexington. And it was just fantastic. I've been listening to Demon Hunter for 16 years. And so hard left veer from like the country folk Americana just into straight like Seattle-based heavy metal. And they've got a new record coming out. It was supposed to be out the day before the concert. Supply chain bumped it back, so it's not coming out till the end of October. But they had CDs at the show, so I bought it. So I've been listening to the record nonstop. It's their 11th studio record, and it's titled Exile. It's their first concept record about a post-apocalyptic land and sense of individualism, technological overdependence. It's been really invigorating because it's very just contra the norm. It wants to push the boundary. It wants to ask us about thinking for ourselves, being faithful to our convictions, having something to stand for. And even, we could get into so much about how society feels split right now, but they're dealing with a lot of heavy topics around, how do you break the mold? Thus the concept of exile. So it's fantastic. I mean, if that's your jam, if you like heavy metal, if you like big guitar riffs, man, October 28th, it can't get here soon enough. They've got like 6 singles out for it though.
Oh, both of those sound very interesting. The concept of recording the same song in different ways, I think sounds pretty fascinating. And the themes of this Exile album seem incredibly relevant to where we are in our history as a civilization.
Yeah.
But I'm not familiar with Demon Hunter.
Sorry.
I know Tyler Childers, but I'm not familiar with Demon Hunter. So what comps would you have for that band? Who would they be like?
Man, it would be some deep cuts like early Zao, Living Sacrifice, like late 90s Living Sacrifice. They're heavily influenced by like all the heavy bands of the 80s and 90s. And so like Pantera is a huge influence on them. I don't know of any better parallels. They're kind of a band that I listen to outside of most else of what I listen to. And it's just 16 years, done a lot of life listening to their records. But I'm convinced Ryan Clark is sort of the songwriter of his generation in that vein of music. So go listen to Exile.
Very cool.
Evan was one of the first people that turned me on to metal music, period. I think when we met, we were like 18 and 19. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. That's
and
about
you
right.
were like a hardcore metalhead. Like we played in a worship band at one point, and this dude was like ripping speed metal riffs in the middle of a Hillsong song, and it was pretty fantastic.
It was the Hillsong arrangement of "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God," and I snuck in Randy Rhodes's chorus riff from Mr. Crowley.
Yeah. Now you know why I love this guy. I'm so excited, not to detract from the new music conversation, but I cannot wait to see what Evan's metal influence and Kevin's blues influence do when we try to go make a country music record tomorrow. It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
This will be great. Hey, Kevin, what are you listening to?
The thing that comes to mind is this new album. So this guy named Jordy Searcy, he's a Nashville-based singer-songwriter. I would consider him like indie pop. He released a new record in like July, but he had released like Evan was saying, like 5 or 6 singles off the album already. Just seems like that's a pretty standard thing to do now. But like, it's like pretty indie pop. But the thing that stands out is that he started to really use like a super old acoustic, like baritone guitar for all of his songs, and it's such a like distinct sound that like when I first heard it, I was like I had no clue what it was. I had to like look up like videos of him playing, whatever. But it just sounds really cool. I think he's like playing into like an amp, like with the acoustic guitar for most of it, which is a really like different sounding guitar situation. It just like has been kind of like eye opening for me to see that being put into like a pop sound, because I like when I think of an acoustic baritone guitar, I don't think that like would fit the mold for that at all. But he's a really good guitarist too and a great singer. So I mean, it's just pretty standard indie pop, but that's just it's a different aspect that makes it stand out to me.
Awesome. I'll have to check that out. I haven't heard that at all.
Yeah,
We can listen to that while we're setting things up tomorrow.
sounds good. Yeah.
So I've got a couple that I wanted to share. I'll share one, and then we'll see if anybody else has anything else. And one is Marcus King came out with an album, I think it's about 2 weeks ago, called Young Blood, and it's just fantastic from track one to the end. Everything is it's just very creative. It has a very distinctive sound, but it doesn't sound the same. It's one of those. Every now and then you'll run across an album that it feels like this is new, but I feel like it's been a part of my music forever, and this is what that album does. It is his second collaboration with Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys. I think a lot of times the things that Auerbach produces ends up sounding a little bit like the Black Keys, and you can kind of tell that he's got his hand on it. That's not necessarily the case here, and that's not a negative. I mean, Black Keys are great, love them, but I don't need to hear, every album that he's involved with sounding like the Black Keys. But this one doesn't. It's very, very creative. Some great sounds, some little nuanced things. Like one of the songs is "Blood on the Tracks," and there's a little flute. There's a little flute solo in it. A little flute line in it, which that it just kind of sets the song off. It's not a distraction, but it's just something that's okay. Well, that's cool. And I'm fascinated by these little things that work their way into songs that are just make it a little more distinctive. And that's part of what's going on with this Marcus King album. And if there's anything to learn from Marcus King, you can be an oddly shaped, really homely looking dude, but if you can play the crap out of the guitar, you can have any woman you want, because his fiance is some sort of, I don't know, swimsuit model or something, but he is an odd looking duck, but my gosh, that guy can play and sing.
He can play.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Anybody have anything else?
I've got a couple
Kevin?
more. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you got Evan.
I was just going to ask, did you get to see Marcus King when he played the Mercury Ballroom back in November of 19?
I did not.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it was like pre-El Dorado, pre-solo career, but they are, everything that they are on a record is amplified and better live.
Yeah.
Vocals, guitar playing, the band is tight. Like you've got to see them.
Yeah, I saw them last weekend, and they just ripped. That song Kevin mentioned, "Blood on the Tracks." Ooh, buddy. That ripped live. It's so good.
It's almost as much a drum album. He uses a musician called Chris St. Hilaire, who apparently plays lots of different instruments, but he plays drums on this. He's just fantastic. It's one of those, as you're listening to it, you're thinking, okay, I got to find out who this is. And so I just started Googling it and tracked it all down. And a guy named Nick Movshin played bass, who plays with Dan Auerbach's other band, not beside the Black Keys, and the name of that eludes me at the moment. But incredible musicians on it. Not to the caliber that Drew's got on his new album, but they're pretty good. Pretty good.
Pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah. So Drew,
Cool.
you had something else?
Yeah, I had a backup just in case we did decide to go around the horn again. But there's a musician that I have recently discovered. His name's Noah Kahan. He's a singer-songwriter, kind of in the vein of Tyler Childers and Zach Bryan and stuff like that. He's got 2 singles out from his next record. One of them is called Stick Season, which is blowing up on TikTok. And actually, we play it live whenever we do shows together back in Louisville. But his next single is called Northern Attitude. Which is the title track off the record. And man, if it is not some in your feelings songwriting, like if you've ever been sad or heartbroken about something, this is the guy right now. But really has just he has a great way with words, almost poetry like in his writing, and have really enjoyed coming along that stuff, and very excited to see what the rest of the record sounds like as well.
Yeah. Lorenzo, anything else?
Similar to a study aspect of what Evan's been doing, I've been listening to a lot of Krungben lately.
They're great.
Specifically because their bassist, Laura Lee, who I think is fantastic, she bases, no pun intended, she bases a lot of her bass lines off of what their guitar player does. So knowing we have Kevin and Evan coming into the studio and playing bass and Drew's music, I've been listening to them specifically, try to figure out what she's doing to not mimic what these guys are going to do tomorrow, but do it in a way where I'm playing off of what they're doing. But in that journey to listen and essentially study, as I call it, I have discovered a ton of different Krungben songs that I have not listened to before, or have and just never really given much thought to, and that's been nice. From it, they do primarily instrumental songs, but the guitar playing that they do is fantastic. I think their drummer is incredible. Everything about that band is so good.
Yeah, I'll say it on record. Krungben is the best thing to come out of Texas since Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah, they're really good.
They're awesome.
Okay,
if you haven't,
hang on. I mean, I'm not claiming to have an encyclopedic. Does anybody know what encyclopedic means anymore? Because we don't have encyclopedias. I'm not claiming to have an encyclopedic listing of the great music that's come out of Texas since Stevie Ray Vaughan. Okay, which was what, 82. But there's a lot.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stand by it.
All right.
I think I'm gonna stand by it. What's the guitar guy's name? I'm blanking right now.
Gary
Out
Clark
of Austin.
Jr.
Gary Clark Jr. is up there, but I think I'm taking Krungben. If there's a draft of Texas musicians,
I'll say
that's a good idea.
I'll say their EPs they released with Leon Bridges, which is Texas Sun, which I think came out 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
Maybe after, I don't remember. And then the subsequent one, which was Texas Moon. From an originality standpoint, that's some of the best music I've heard in a while.
Yeah.
I find the songs on those 2 EPs that I really like, I don't mind putting on repeat and just letting play for a while and just sitting back and listening to. One on Texas Moon in particular, which I showed Evan today, was it's Mariella. That's one of the best songs I've heard in a while. That's one of the ones I've rediscovered recently. I listened to Texas Moon when it came out and just kind of was like, oh, this is cool. And then, as I said, through this journey I've gone through listening to them, that one came back up, and that one blows me away.
Okay. All right. I'm not taking that deep a dive into this band, so I've got some homework to do then.
There you go.
They're pretty good.
That's why we do this show. Introduce people to music.
That is exactly why we do this show. Exactly why. Okay. No, I like that. Lorenzo. That's cool. Kevin, Evan, anything else?
I don't I don't think so on my part. I've just been trying to prep for this week, so lots of just deep diving on random Spotify playlists.
I've listened to Charlie Puth's new single a gross amount of times. It's so good.
What's that called? I've seen it on like online.
Smells Like Me is what it's. I mean, he's hit or miss, but when he hits, like it's like I'm a Charlie Puth stan unapologetically.
Yeah, we were talking about musicians earlier. I think it was before you guys got to town, but Lorenzo and I were talking about musicians that piss us off because they're so good. And he's one of those that like the perfect pitch and just the engineering and production work that he does is crazy.
And he's such a good piano player. It's just like,
yeah, it's not fair.
No, it's not.
Save some talent for the rest of us.
I feel like that could be a whole episode of this podcast of just musicians that make me mad.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
I'm going to throw out another one. A band that I really locked into in my college days. So that's probably before you guys were born. But it's a band called out of Texas called King's X.
Is that pre-82 or not?
That is post 82. This is their first album called Out of the Silent Planet came out in 88. And they kind of fit that. It's like if you take the blues and you take heavy metal and you take the Beatles and you put it all together, that's King's X. And a lot of their stuff, especially the early stuff, is written from a very, very much a concept album standpoint, with much of it with Christian themes and overtones. Now, they never claimed to be a Christian band at the time, but a lot of their stuff really kind of folds into that. But they released their first album in 14 years, I think, this past week, and it's called Three Sides of One, and it's really good. It really kicks. It's not as good as some of their really early stuff that they did, but for some guys that are probably in their mid 60s at this point, they really bring it. And some of the guitar sounds that they get are really on point. One of my favorite guitar solos of all time is from a King's X song called "The Prisoner," and so I'm sitting here telling these guitar guys to go listen to songs with guitar solos. So that's kind of ridiculous on my part, but I encourage you to check them out. They have a very unique sound, and a band that, even today I keep going back to a lot of their early stuff. So
very cool. I think we need to get this playlist together tomorrow, and we'll just listen to it while we're in downtime. Shoot it our way when it's done.
All right, I can work on that. I think it'll be fun. But all right, anybody got anything else?
I don't think so.
Okay, I did break out one other new whiskey. Our friend Jason Bronner over at Buzzard's Roost. This is their Toasted American Oak Straight Bourbon whiskey. Yeah. Last year, one of my favorite whiskeys of the entire year was their Toasted Barrel rye, and just within the last month or so, they've come out with this Toasted Barrel bourbon, and it's fantastic. So if you have the opportunity, highly suggest picking up a bottle. So.
Is that the same batch that you and I tried together at their event?
It is.
A while back? Yeah, that was delightful. Yeah. So good.
Yep, some great stuff. So, all right. There's a lot of things that I could really kind of dig into with you guys. All right, let me ask this. All right. So Lorenzo, when you're getting ready to go into the studio, you've talked a little bit about doing some homework. So you've worked with Drew before, obviously. You've heard some of the demo tracks, probably all the demo tracks that he's put together.
Now you've written some.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you have in mind in terms? How do you come up with this is the sound that I want this album to have? This is the feel that I want this album to have, and then how do you capture that?
I feel like that's a deep question. Drew and I do have a playlist that I don't know if you still add songs to it. I know I do every once in a
I
while.
do. Yeah.
But if I'm listening to something on Spotify, for instance, and I hear it and I go, oh, this sounds like something that I feel like could be cool on like a Drew record, I'll add it to that playlist. I feel like admitting that to some degree, like saying like, hey, Drew, listen to this for inspiration, to some people it's probably like a no-go. I think it works in this case, so I just go with it. I know what Drew likes to listen to. I know who he's a fan of. I know his style. I find on my end, I will push him more to listen to music, or I'll send him something like, hey, this might be cool. That's maybe like the complete opposite of what he is going for. To kind of get his brain working to an extent. As for how I come up with this is what we need to go for, it kind of just depends. I'm very thankful that when Drew writes a song, he will send me a demo, or he'll send me lyrics, or send me a chart, and he'll say, this is what I'm thinking. And usually I've noticed there's 2 or 3 songs that'll be like, I want it to sound like this, this, or this. So I'll kind of go and I'll listen to those, and I'll go through my brain and be like, oh, this reminds me of this, and I'll go listen to that. And see if I can draw anything from there. But I know with one that we're recording tomorrow in particular, from my end, I feel like in terms of the sound that we should go for, I've bounced back and forth on what I think it should be. I feel like I've sent Drew a million different examples of like, hey, this could work. Hey, this could work. And I what finally got it for me is, for this particular song, is I needed to get out of my apartment for a little bit. I went on a hike and I put on Hotel California, the album by the Eagles, and the song Try and Love Again came on, which is one of my favorite Eagles songs of all time. And I listened to it and I was like, no, this is it. I think this is what we're going for. And that was the first song I sent Drew, where I was like, is this what we're going for? Like, is this what you're thinking? And that was the first one of, I don't know how many songs I sent him, where he was like, and I think that was the first one I sent him where he was like, yeah, this is it. So as soon as that happened, I just honed in and was like, okay, then I need to do this. I need to do this. I need to focus on working on this particular aspect of whatever it may be. But I mean, there could be a lot that goes into that, to be honest with you. Yeah. I think it just depends on the person you're working with too.
Yeah. I think one of the things, and I'm not saying we have this nailed yet, but one of the things that makes Lorenzo and I's relationship so strong is we are in constant communication about what we're listening to and the ideas that we have of like, hey, I like this drum tone, or this guitar track is something that I think maybe something in this vein will work. And then we also just are friends. So we talk about shows that we've seen and records that we like and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of builds this shared vernacular for ideas. And then I don't know anybody that has as much like knowledge of how to achieve certain tones and sounds as Lorenzo does. So I'm like, hey, I like this John Mayer tune or this Chris Stapleton tune. And he's like, oh yeah, I can do that with this plug-in and this compressor and this like way of miking it. And it just somehow every time we're in studio together seems to find its way out.
Which is funny too, because earlier as we were trying to record a scratch track, there was this particular tune we're working on, and I remember when we started talking about it, I was like, oh, what if we went for like a psychedelic country disco sound? I feel like that could work here. And Drew was 100% on board, and we worked on it. And I realized very quickly that maybe it was the 3/4 instead of 4/4 of a time signature, which if you're in 3/4, disco is out the window. So kind of had to
Right.
to readjust everything, which was fine. So planned out what we're doing tomorrow. It was like, this is what we're gonna do, and then we record the scratch track, and now we're thinking it might be in 4/4. So now I'm over here thinking, well, maybe I gotta change it again.
Yep.
But I don't know. I guess we'll figure that one out tomorrow. I say that because I don't think anything is ever definitive,
No.
especially in terms of the sound of a record or the sound of a song. I know I said it to Evan a few times today as we were plotting. I have ideas that I want to do when we go in the studio. I know with Drew, I tell him every idea I have because at the end of the day, it's his music. It's not mine. People are going to listen to it because it says it's Drew. It's by Drew Crawley, and not because my name is on the flap on the inside. So I try to keep Drew in the loop on everything that I come up with. But I have a feeling tomorrow we're going to change course numerous times.
Yeah, definitely. It's almost never fully formed until we spend a couple hours and then we sit down and we listen back, and then that's really where all the tweaking happens and stuff like that. Like we'll take all these ideas from months of conversations and shared Google Docs, and then really where it forms up is when we sit down to listen back to something.
I don't think the hard work is tomorrow or Tuesday for me. I think the hard work is after that.
Yeah,
because tomorrow and Tuesday we're going to get what we get and we're going to work with it, but Wednesday and onward, as we're working on the next single, we're going to have to listen back and say, well, we needed to do that, so we need that. And I think that's, in my opinion, that's where my work really kicks in.
But by sharing that music back and forth, you develop a vocabulary, right? Where you can say, okay, the trade-off guitar solos at the end of Hotel California. How do we incorporate that with Evan and Kevin? Right.
So I talked with Evan a little bit earlier. Kevin, welcome. I was going to have this conversation with you too. But I gave Evan some examples similar to how I work with Drew, and was like, hey, listen to this song, how this guy does this, and how this guitar player. It's like a call and response, basically. Show that to Evan to kind of be like, this is, I guess, for this particular song, this is what we're going for. Like I said, I think I know from people I've talked to, using that as an example is kind of a no-go. I think the reason we work so well with that is because that was a product of the pandemic. And when we worked on Tower songs, that's how we had to work. You were 3 hours away and we couldn't meet to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the best way to go about it. And it's kind of stuck. But yeah, I think showing Evan the examples, and so basically tomorrow, Kevin, I'm just going to need you to not mimic what Evan's doing, but work with them, and that'd be great.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Very cool.
Well, all right.
I will say, real quickly, that's
Sure.
also a good way, working as we share music back and forth, back with theme of the episode here. I've learned a lot of new music from Drew by doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's done the same.
No, absolutely.
But I think that's also important with the people you work with or just your friends. Just, hey, I've been listening to this lately. I like this. My musical vocabulary has just expanded so much because of it.
Yeah. And Drew and I do that as well, not for the same purpose, but a lot for what we're doing on the show. But I'll also send him things and say, hey, this might be a good cover song for you. And I've burdened Kevin with the same kind of things. And there's a crisp $100 bill for the first one of you that does Freebird live. So
not happening.
But I can't.
I didn't know that was on the table. All right, next time at O'Shea's, I'm doing it.
I have to be there. Okay, I have to be there. All right, man. All right, this has been fun. I appreciate you guys being here, sharing some of the music that you love, sharing some of the music that you make and are about to make. I think this has been a fun time together. So before we sign off, we want to talk about where everybody can find you and find your music. So Lorenzo, let's start with you.
I have a website. It's LorenzoVenturellamusic.com. There it is. Anything I work on or anything that's released I haven't posted there. I'm also on Instagram, which is just Lorenzo_Venturella. If anybody wants to get in contact with me for any reason, I got a form on the website, and I just message me on Instagram, and I'll get back to you.
Awesome. And Evan?
Yeah, you can find me likewise at evansamsmusic.com. Yeah, link right there. And then I'm on Instagram at Guitar Evan. No underscores, no dashes, just all guitar.
Just Guitar Evan. Mr. Niehoff.
I feel like you could sell that username for a lot. Like that seems like you could get something for that. But
I'm hoping somebody makes it big and I get to cash in on that username.
How about you? How about you make it big and you cash in on that username?
Best
How about
case
that?
scenario, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm also on Instagram at Kevin Niehoff Music, and I'm on Spotify. I have an album and an EP out, and new music coming soon. So keep an eye out if you like what you hear.
Yeah, and tell everybody what the names of your album and your EP are.
The EP is just Kevin Niehoff, and then the album is Degrees of Separation.
Yeah, Degrees of Separation is the best John Mayer album in probably about 15 years. So it really is.
I appreciate
it. It really is a great record, though. Seriously, you killed it with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, let me ask this question. Okay, I'm trying to wrap up the show, and I'm not doing a good job at it because I want to ask you another question. Kevin, your albums are basically self-produced, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing everything yourself. How do you see that as being helpful, or how do you see it as, boy, it would be nice to have somebody to help carry this load? Kind of talk about that process.
It was helpful because I had unlimited time for takes on everything. So like for guitar, I could literally spend as long as I wanted to get a riff down, and then also for like all the keys parts, I could just kind of program it or play it to how I knew to play it, and then just edit the MIDI chords as I went on. That was definitely the biggest advantage. But then the biggest disadvantage is that like that was also the case. So I just spent way too much time on stuff that I could have just been cranking out with someone else's opinion. And I mean, also without a lot of people's opinions, it just kind of is limited in a way. But for my next stuff, I'm getting it produced by like externally, and then I want to get into a record, a studio to do the next full band album. So
awesome. Well,
yeah, it was definitely a good learning experience to understand like how I work and everything. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
It really is a fantastic album. I really enjoy listening to it, and got into it immediately after we first met at Drew's gig, and
that cold night.
Yep, that cold night. But I keep going back to it and really enjoy it. So congratulations on that. It's really, really good. And Drew.
Yeah. Well, thank you to my friends and bandmates and Wild Boys tonight for being on. It has been a blast. You can find me on Twitter at DrewCrawley63, mostly for snark and me being a jerk. And then on Instagram at Drew.Crawley63. That's where we post most of the music stuff. If you do follow along, you will be seeing a lot more of these guys in the coming days, and some new music as well.
Yes. Looking forward to all of that. Every little bit of it. Our show, Bourbon Turntable, we're on Facebook. We've got a Facebook page where we'll post all the shows and such. But we also have a new Facebook group. So encourage you to get on Facebook, search Bourbon Turntable, find our group, join our group. Because what we want that to become is just a place where people can post, hey, I'm sitting here, I'm drinking this Buzzard Drew's toasted barrel bourbon, and I'm listening to Demon Hunter. Okay, so we can talk about the new whiskeys that we're drinking, or maybe the old whiskeys that we're drinking and what we're enjoying, as well as the music that we're listening to. But you can also subscribe to the show, watch the show on YouTube. You can listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and we really appreciate any comments that you might leave us as well. Drew, we've got a show coming up next week as well.
Yes, very, very excited. So we're going to have Eric from Stoll and Wolf on, as well as friend of the show, Mr. Alan Bishop will be making his triumphant return once again. So it's always a good time when Alan's here. We're very, very excited to have Eric on as well. Be a great time.
Yeah, it will be a lot of fun. So until next time, I want to thank Lorenzo and Evan and Kevin for joining us and for just spending some time with us tonight. I hope you had a good time. Hope everything goes really well for you all this week. I'm really looking forward to what comes out of it. So, but until next time on Bourbon Turntable, on behalf of Lorenzo and Kevin and Evan, Andrew, and me, cheers, love, and free bird.
Cheers. Good night, boys.
Good night.
Yep. Always a pleasure, Kev. Drew.
Thank you.